I want to share with you a really cool approach that you can use for improvising over 2-5-1s. And specifically, we're going to be working with major 2-5-1s, in which the formula is going to be a minor 7 2 chord, followed by a dominant 7 5 chord, followed by a major 7 1 chord. We're going to be demonstrating this in the key of C for right now. So we're going to have a D minor 7, followed by G dominant 7, followed by a C major 7. And as I said, we're going to be using the minor pentatonic scale for this. And this is a very, very simple idea, but it sounds very, very advanced. And it takes us a little bit outside of what we would normally hear with typical diatonic modal ideas that we would use over this context. So this is how it's going to work. Over the 2 chord, we're going to play the minor pentatonic scale starting from the 5th of that 2 chord. So in other words, we're going to start on the 5 of 2. The 2 chord is D minor 7. So we're going to play our minor pentatonic scale from the A, which is the 5 of D. All right? So obviously there's different places that you can play that across the fingerboard. But we want to be able to start it there to get a particular sound. Now, what we're actually doing when we're playing a minor pentatonic scale from the 5 of 2 is we're selectively playing certain tones and extensions that are going to color our idea in a certain way. In other words, it's going to basically imply a particular chordal sound because of the notes that we're using. So relative to a D minor 7 chord, if we go through each of the individual notes of the minor pentatonic scale starting on A, it's going to basically identify for us what that sound and color is going to be. So the A is the 5, we've already stated that. The next note in line would be the C, and the C is the flat 7 of a D minor 7 chord. Next note in line is a D, which is of course the root. Next note in line is going to be the E, which is the 2 or the 9. Then the next note is going to be a G, which is the 4 or the 11. And then we end back up with A again. And that's the minor pentatonic scale from A, basically overlaid onto a D minor 7 chord. So what we're really kind of getting out of that is a D minor 11 implied sound there, and that's what's going to give it a slightly more interesting character than if we just were to use something like just a D Dorian scale, or even like a D minor pentatonic scale or a D minor 7 arpeggio. Now, when we go to the 5 chord, G7, we're going to take that minor pentatonic scale and we're just going to move it up a single half step. So we're going to move from A to A sharp. Okay, so we're going to play an A sharp minor pentatonic scale. And now if we analyze what notes we're playing relative to G7, if we're starting that scale on the A sharp, this is what we're going to have. The A sharp would be our sharp 9, which is an altered tone over a dominant chord. So that's going to give us some tension there. Then we're going to have the C sharp. And the C sharp relative to G, the root G of the G7 chord, that's enharmonic to a D flat. So that's a flat 5. So that's another altered tone right there. The next note would be a D sharp or an E flat. Relative to G, that D sharp is a sharp 5. Once again, another altered tone. So we have 3 altered tones so far. Then the next note is going to be an F, and an F is the flat 7 of G. And then the last note is going to be a G sharp or an A flat, and that is our flat 9, which is the 4th altered tone. So we've got the flat 9, the sharp 9, the flat 5, and the sharp 5 all included in this minor pentatonic scale that we're starting from the A sharp. So that's going to give us an altered dominant sound over the 5 chord. All right? Then for the 1 chord, C major 7, we're going to move the minor pentatonic scale up another half step from where we left off. We left off at an A sharp, so we're going to move it now up to B. So we're going to play the minor pentatonic scale from B. And relative to C, if we play the B minor pentatonic scale, we're going to be playing B, which is the 7 of C major 7, followed by the D, which is the 2 or the 9, okay? And followed by the E, which is the 3rd, followed by the F sharp, which is the sharp 11, which gives us a Lydian sound, followed by the A, which is the 6 or the 13. And those are all the notes of the B minor pentatonic scale. So going one by one through each of the chords, each one of those displaced minor pentatonic scales implies a particular color. So once again, over the D minor 7 chord, we're playing an A minor pentatonic scale, and that's giving us the sound of like a D minor 11, basically. Okay. Then over the G7 chord, we're playing an A sharp minor pentatonic scale. That's giving us the sound of a G altered dominant. Okay. And then over the C major 7 chord, we're going up and playing a minor pentatonic scale off of B, and that's implying a Lydian sound over our C major 7 chord. Okay, now let's play it in context so you get a chance to hear. Now I've created a file just recording the chords on my bass. This is what it sounds like. D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Okay, I'm going to step through each of these. Right, A minor pentatonic, A sharp minor pentatonic, B minor pentatonic. So there you go. That's an example of what it would sound like over a 2-5-1 in C major. Now what I like to do is take this same approach and apply it to all the different keys. And I also apply it to different styles as well. Obviously that example I was using just a simple swing drum loop underneath just some bass chords that I had recorded. It's a very simple way to get started with this. But I also like taking music software and maybe, blending together different styles. And so my phrasing is influenced by what I'm hearing the other instruments do. And remember that when you're working on this, you don't want it to turn into an approach in which you're just mindlessly just running the scale patterns back and forth. You don't want it to sound like it's just you playing an idea, move up a half step, play the same idea, move up a half step, play the same idea. Your creativity needs to be challenged by using different intervallic combinations that come out of each of these minor pentatonic scales. And you're trying to, I think, ultimately, create motif-oriented playing with this type of concept, because the ear hears that there is a likeness to the shape of each individual idea that you're playing over each individual chord. And that's kind of the hook to it. So it's up to you to take that hook and make it very, very interesting. But it's really fun concept to work on because it's easy to adapt to, because it just uses this simple scale pattern, this minor pentatonic pattern that we're just moving in half steps. But hopefully you observed as I was playing through it, I wasn't just staying in one localized position. I was trying to move it all over the neck and play in different creative ways with different rhythms and whatnot. So have fun with this concept. It's a pretty cool one, and we'll see you in the next lesson.